28th, 2024, regular meeting of the City of Coolidge City Council to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Norma, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Tom Bagnall.
Present.
Councilmember Audrey Saavedra.
Present.
Councilmember Steve Hudson.
Here.
Mayor John Thompson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jackie Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Tatiana Murrieta.
Here.
And Councilmember Eric Daniels.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you, Norma. Okay, right off the bat, we're going to start off with call to the public. That's when we have the public that wants to address the council. We'll have up to 3 minutes to address the council. When you do, please come to the podium and state your name and your address, and you'll have, the timer will start and you'll have 3 minutes. Norma, do you have a list?
Mayor, we have a list, but not for, all under the public hearing.
Oh, okay. All right, then. Well, then we'll wait for this is called the public, so is there anything other than, that wants to speak to anything other than what the topic of the public hearing? Seeing nobody charged forward, we'll move out of call of the public and we'll move into public hearing. Item 3, to receive public comments on an appeal of a conditional use permit denial by the Planning and Zoning Commission that would allow the development of a battery energy storage system, a BESS, consisting of approximately 48 acres more or less, located approximately 900 feet north of the northeast intersection corner of West Selma Highway and South 11 Mile Corner, APN number 401-6902, Adam, Coolidge, Arizona. This is a public hearing. Okay, Gilbert.
Mayor Thompson, Vice Mayor Henry, council members. This is a public hearing, as you read, on the appeal of a battery energy storage system, a conditional use permit that was denied by the Planning and Zoning Commission at a hearing they had, and it's a meeting they had at April 10th, 2024. Now, this is a battery energy storage system, which what they do is they store batteries from a utility they store energy into the batteries from a utility that downloads it into the battery and then pulls it back out as they need it. So unlike a solar facility, which creates power, and then they sell it or give it to SRP or PS. So that's the difference between the two is this is a battery energy storage system that stores battery for a utility company, or stores energy, I keep saying battery, right? Energy for the utility company, and then they control it. So they put power into it and put power out of it. So that's just a little explanation on the difference. And so as a matter of record, too, just so you're aware, the property is actually 59.7 acres, including the canal, because it has somewhere it says 48, so that's just a correction I needed to tell you. The Alta survey showed a little more property. So with that, I think you've got a lot of information in the packet, and this, I just want to show you, go back just real quick. This is the general location of where it's at. For those that don't know, it's south of 287, pretty close to 11 Mile Corner Road in Selma, that area. There's a large solar array here, and it's north of that facility, but it's not connected in any way to the solar, so it's standalone. All right. And this is just a general site overall, and this gives you the site itself, and what this darker area is where the batteries would go. And so they're utilizing a portion of the property, not all of it, just so you're aware. And this is 11 Mile Corner Road. I think Selma Highway is down here. And this, yeah, I believe that's it. And so it gives you a good idea of where it's at. And the applicants are here. And they have a short presentation if you'd like them to go through that. It's up to you for it. And I think we have a representative from Salt River Project here also.
Okay. Is that it? Is that it, Gil?
Yes, from my end of it, and then if you'd like Andrew to present from the applicant, he can step up here and do his part.
Okay. Go ahead, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Thompson, City Council members. My name is Andrew Yancey. I'm an attorney with Bergen, Frank, Smalley, and Oberholzer. We're at 4343 East Camelback Road in Phoenix. I'm pleased to be here representing AES tonight. They're requesting approval of a conditional use permit for their East Line battery energy storage. As staff informed you, that would store and discharge power directly to the public utility grid that's operated by SRP. Before I begin, I do just want to thank staff for their hard work bringing this application forward and also for their recommendation of approval. As you heard, this case is actually on appeal tonight from the Planning and Zoning Commission. They voted 3-2 last month to deny the application. It appeared there was some confusion at that hearing about the use, and the basis for denial was not clear. This evening, I do have a PowerPoint presentation. Frankly, it's going to take me a little bit more time than I usually like in public hearings, but I think there are several points that we really need to clarify after the P&Z hearing. Phil has the magic touch, apparently. Just briefly, I think Gilbert covered this. The project location is on the side of 11 Mile Corner, just north of Selma Highway. It is in the city's ag zoning district. Yeah, I can say next slide. Sorry, we'll try to move this along. So next slide, please. All right, so the applicant here is AES. They've got extensive experience developing and operating generation and storage projects. They've worked in all 50 states. They have over 1 gigawatt of energy generation or storage that has been developed here in Arizona that's in operation today. Their model is always to engage the communities where they have projects. Here, they're already members of the Coolidge Chamber of Commerce and Pinal Partnership. They certainly look forward to more opportunities to partner with community organizations. Next slide, please. Now, our requested CUP is for a public utility buildings, structures, or equipment use. There was some confusion at P&Z as to whether this is a solar project. It is not. In fact, this proposal is for what is known as grid-charged battery storage, and it fills a critical infrastructure need that SRP has identified. The standalone battery stores power from the broader utility grid and then discharges it back onto the grid. As a CUP request, the zoning ordinance has specific criteria for analysis. There are 5 findings that are to be considered. Unfortunately, from the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, there wasn't really analysis of those 5 findings, so we couldn't tell what the basis of the. Please. Just briefly, those 5 findings are up on screen. I'll come back to them more in depth, but I did want to note that city staff has looked at them and determined that we meet all 5. Excellent. So I want to take a step back and put this case in a little bit of context. Our state is experiencing significant growth. In particular, it's been very successful at attracting new industry, creating new jobs, including here in Coolidge and across Pinal County. With this new growth comes new infrastructure needs. Water, we all know is vital, wastewater, traffic, and also electrical infrastructure. Now, you, as the city of Coolidge, have the ability to condition projects that come through with regard to water and wastewater and traffic and make sure that development is paying its own way. Electrical infrastructure is different. We rely on the utilities to supply the electricity to meet the demands of all this growth. And those utilities are now at a critical juncture to make sure they can supply sufficient power for the anticipated growth, especially when we're looking at the high-tech and manufacturing uses that have very high power needs. Last summer, both of our state's primary utilities, SRP and APS, both broke their all-time records for highest peak demand. Now, I'm not going to tell you that our one battery storage project is going to resolve all of the energy, but SRP has identified a need for critical infrastructure, and this project can address it. Next slide. So this is a graph that shows demand for electricity fluctuating throughout the day. As you can see, demand is highest in the late afternoon and early evening. That's when everything's been heating up all day. People are getting home from work and lots of air conditioning units are running. This is called peak demand. And this issue, of course, is more pronounced in hotter climates like we have here in Arizona. Last year, SRP put out a request for proposals to third-party providers, specifically seeking resources that can quickly deploy to meet this peak demand and improve grid reliability. And they need these resources soon as the summer of 2026. Next slide, please. Battery storage is a resource that can be rapidly deployed and is becoming an important important tool for utilities to meet this peak demand. In fact, SRP's request for proposal last year has a specific category for grid charged energy storage. These are connected to the grid, and when there is low demand for power on the grid, the battery can take energy off and store it. When there is high demand on the grid, like those peak hours we just looked at, the batteries discharge power back onto the grid to make sure that there aren't any blackout instances and that there's sufficient reliability across the grid. That is precisely what is proposed here. Grid charged battery storage to help meet peak demand. Next slide. Now, let's start on this specific proposal. AES is looking to locate this battery storage on approximately 59 acres. It's a remote location in Coolidge. In fact, the property is bordered on one side by the Florence-Casa Grande Canal and on 3 other sides by solar fields. The battery storage will connect into an adjacent substation to the south that you see noted in blue there. One other thing to note, this property has very limited potential for more traditional development, for residential, for commercial, industrial. It's just not a good spot for it. Next slide, please. On the other hand, this is a great spot for the proposed battery storage because of the proximity to existing transmission infrastructure. The BESS will connect to the adjacent substation, and we don't need to construct a new gen tie, so no constructing new transmission lines off-site. That substation then connects into 500 kV lines that run up and down a road, and those transmission lines connect to the Pinal Central substation. That's a significant regional substation. It connects to SRP, APS, WAPA, and soon SunVia once their line is constructed. So connecting to this hub serving multiple utilities is significant because it allows the project's peak hour discharge to provide a reliability benefit more broadly across the grid. Next slide, please. Now, AES's proposed battery storage would be 150 megawatts. That's about enough power to power 125,000 homes. The batteries will be lithium-ion cells. They're housed in racks, then placed in containers. These containers are sealed. They're spaced apart. Each has its own temperature control, remote sensors, and built-in fire suppression. Next slide, please. Now, the battery storage footprint here, it's not going to take up the entire site, and that allows for some significant. In particular, the current design is looking at the batteries being over 1,000 feet from 11 Mile Corner Road on the west and 350 feet from that canal to the north. So it's set very far back there. There's also some existing vegetation along the north that will remain, and AES is proposing to put in new landscaping along 11 Mile Corner Road. Next slide, please. So I want to show you, this is a before and after visual simulation. We're looking from the west across 11 Mile Corner Road at the property. On the left side here, you can see the existing substation very clearly behind our property. On the right, we added in the proposed battery storage and also the proposed landscaping. What you see is that the proposed battery storage is nearly invisible, and the overall view is actually improved by the additional screening. Next slide, please. We also wanted to analyze the view from the north. This is near the Sunscape RV Park. Here we added in the battery storage containers to an existing photo. You really can't see them. So that's why we had to put these callouts there to show where it was. This property is about 700 feet away from our property. There is the existing vegetation there. These containers are only about 10 to 12 feet tall, so with the setbacks and screening, they really will not cause visual impacts to the surrounding area. Next slide, please. Now, I know there's some concern that's been raised about safety, and I want to make sure to address that. First of all, we have been coordinating with Coolidge's fire chief, Mr. Dillon. We will continue to do so throughout the development process. In fact, based on coordination with Mr. Dillon, the CUP that we have includes a stipulation that requires we meet certain regulatory standards for fire protection. We are happy to comply with this. Yeah, that's the one. I also want to note that in recent years, battery safety regulation advanced significantly. Early battery technology came around about 15 years ago. There were some safety events. They were rare, but they did occur. In the past 5 years, though, safety regulations have really been refined. The rate of incidences has decreased, and they've become more minor in scale. One of the primary differences is that batteries used to be placed inside enclosed buildings. Now battery containers are outdoors and they're spaced apart to prevent spillover from one to another in case there is any sort of incident. It'd be more isolated. We will certainly follow that model here and make sure each container has its own temperature control, sensors with automatic shutdown capability, and internal fire suppression within a sealed container. Someone will be available on call 24/7 if sensors detect any type of event. In particular, I want to note the National Fire Protection Association here, NFPA. That's an organization that's been around over 100 years working on fire safety. In 2019, they released what they call Regulation 855. It specifically addresses fire protection for battery energy storage. This regulation continues to be updated to reflect best practices. In compliance with this regulation, it's common practice for AES, but is also part of that stipulation that's been put onto the CUP to make sure we'll comply with it. In particular, there's a few of the requirements that we plan to exceed. One is that NFPA regulation requires a 100-foot setback for remote facilities. We're going to exceed that on all sides, like I noted, and be much farther from the west and north. We're also proposing 20-foot spacing between the separate containers. The regulation only requires 3 feet. So that is 6 times the industry standard for separation between the containers. Next slide, please. Now, we discussed the project's going to have significant benefits for grid reliability to meet peak hour demand, but it's also going to have several additional benefits more specific to the community here. We estimate about just under $10 million in additional tax revenue over the life of the project. That's split primarily between the county, the city, Coolidge Unified School District, and the Central Arizona College District. These tax figures have been verified by a third-party tax watchdog known as the Arizona Tax Research Association, or ATRA. Also, given this property's location, this BESS is really the highest and best use of the otherwise vacant land. The project will create approximately 200 construction jobs. Admittedly, that's a one-time temporary benefit, but it's certainly more economic activity than is being generated on that property today. And finally, while the project will enhance electrical infrastructure, it's not a drain on other infrastructure. There's very limited water, wastewater, and sewer use. I'm sorry, water, wastewater, and traffic generation. Next slide. All right, now I want to start wrapping up a little by focusing on the city process, the city of Coolidge's process, because this is a land use case. So we look to Coolidge's zoning ordinance. Because the property is in the ag zoning district, your zoning ordinance allows public utility, buildings, structures, and equipment with approval of a CUP. Here, the battery storage container is a structure because it is mounted on the ground. That's the definition. It's also a public utility use because it stores energy from the public utility grid and discharges it back onto that grid. Now, at P&Z Commission, there were questions about whether AES itself is a public utility. But this question is really irrelevant because the land use regulation pertains to the use of the property, not the applicant. The battery storage is critical infrastructure that will serve the public utility grid through SRP, and that's what defines the use. There were also questions at P&Z about whether this use is permitted outside of the solar overlay. Yes, it absolutely is. The solar overlay is the only place in the city where the solar farm use is permitted within the ag district. But our use is not solar. there are no solar panels proposed on the site. We're proposing standalone battery storage as the principal use of the land. It is not an accessory use. In fact, our battery could continue to serve the grid even if all of the surrounding solar generation ceased operation. This CUP process that we're in gives the city a chance to evaluate the specific site to determine if it's appropriate based on the 5 findings set forth in the zoning ordinance. Now, I'm going to walk through each one of those findings because this site is precisely the type of property where this use is appropriate. The first finding ensures the property is large enough for the use. Here we talked about that the battery storage won't take up the whole site. It'll actually be less than 50% of the site. So this one's easily met. Next slide. The second finding ensures roadways are sufficient. Battery storage generates very few traffic trips and they can be accommodated. Also, as part of this case, AES will dedicate and improve 55 feet of right-of-way for 11-mile corner road adjacent to the property. Next slide. So the third finding evaluates impacts to abutting properties. Here, as I noted, the property is abutted by a canal to the north and solar fields on the 3 other sides, none of which will be negatively impacted by this project. In addition, AES voluntarily held an open house about the project in February. They provided mailers in a 300-foot radius to property owners, and no one from the surrounding area attended that meeting. Next slide. The fourth finding requires conformance with the general plan. Here, the property is within the urban neighborhood land use category that explicitly lists public utility installations as an appropriate use. Next slide. And the fifth and final finding is about the conditions of approval. There are 6 general conditions that the code provides. Staff has also proposed 8 special conditions to the CUP. AES agrees to all of them. Next slide. So to conclude, this application meets the 5 findings for a CUP request. In fact, the property's remote surroundings and its adjacency to robust existing utility infrastructure, I really think it'd be difficult to find a site that would be better suited for this use, and that's why we're here talking about this property today. I know I've taken up a bit of your time this evening. Thank you. This project is an important piece of critical infrastructure. It will help meet peak demand, and I wanted to take this time because I think there were several items where we needed to clear up some confusion. Hopefully we've done that, and we can move on to the appropriate CUP analysis. We, of course, respectfully ask for your vote to approve this CUP application. I'll be available for any questions either now or when you get to consideration later on. Thank you.
Jim, you have any questions, or do you want to wait till we get to that item?
The only question I have is, you had mentioned it's gonna generate $10 million worth of tax revenue. How is that gonna generate $10 million worth of tax revenue to the city of Coolidge?
So it's in property taxes primarily, and they're filtered through the county. And again, and I'm not a tax expert, I'm a land use lawyer. I did submit this to the Arizona Tax Research Association for their peer review, and that's what they found. They came out to, I think our initial analysis was 10 million, they came out with 9.9 million.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Norma?
Mayor, our second speaker is Linda Brady on behalf of SRP.
Good evening, Mayor Thompson and members of the Coolidge City Council. My name is Linda Brady, and I'm here representing SRP and speaking in support of the AES battery storage facility and the conditional use permit. SRP provides electricity to more than 1 million customers in both Maricopa and Pinal County. While SRP does not provide direct electric service to the Coolidge area, we are working with ED2, the utility that does, on a power sale agreement from SRP to ED2 to help them meet their growing energy needs. We recognize that we have a number of power generation facilities in the area, and our intention is to be a good neighbor and partner in the community. In an agreement with AES, SRP plans to purchase the stored power from the proposed battery storage plant. Generation projects like this are critical for SRP and other utilities in the region to meet this growing demand. This battery storage project is timely due to Arizona's significant growth and record-breaking temperatures. Factors driving this increased power need include hotter summers, business expansion, and population growth. To maintain reliability, utilities have to add new resources to the grid, including batteries. Anytime a utility can add extra capacity to the grid, it benefits the entire area by reducing potential reliance on the power market, which can expose utilities to a very high cost. It also creates a more robust grid, regardless of any local utility. Reliability is vitally important to public safety, especially to protect those who are most vulnerable during the summer weather conditions. Remember last month's summer scorching temperatures. Batteries allow storing of power during low demand periods and using it during high demand periods. The power grid is a large interconnected network, and most utilities own or purchase power from facilities both inside and outside of their direct service areas. In addition, utilities in Arizona often buy and sell power to one another to make sure that the grid remains reliable. This is true for both SRP and ED2. Regardless of ownership, the generation and wires must all work together to maintain this delicate supply-demand. The AES battery project is crucial to ensuring sufficient power to serve customers by summer of 2026 and to help maintain grid reliability. Coolidge is one of several cities where SRP has developed or partnered on battery projects. Our recent standalone battery projects were built in Peoria, Avondale, Mesa, and Gilbert, situated in residential neighborhoods right next to existing substations or generation plants. As the population grows, grid expansion is necessary. Battery storage is critical to meet customer demand, prevent power outages, and maintain reliability. For these reasons, SRP urges you to approve the conditional use permit for the AES battery storage project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Christina Rosenbaum.
I don't think it's 3 minutes on this type of hearing. Public hearing. It's not called public.
I apologize. I was still taking notes. I like to try to do a little bit of research before I speak, so of course, first one. I do have a couple questions about this, only because I am familiar with that area.
Christine,
I'm sorry, I'm Christina Rosenbaum,
and your address?
807 West Gibson Avenue.
Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize. I'm nervous. It's not my fault. So yes, I am familiar with this area, so I do know, well, I grew up in Lovemark Corner, so I am familiar with this area. But I do have a couple questions. As far as where it is located, and I notes. Told you I wasn't ready. So you did say that there is a fire suppressant system, which I did hear, which is good. Excess power, you guys answered that one. One of my biggest questions was really, how is this going to benefit Coolidge? And Coolidge specifically, because when we talk about these, it's all about taxes. Excuse me, and you said there's 9.9 million, but where? Where's it going and how exactly is it going to benefit us? The next thing was, in Chandler in 2022, AES and SRP, there was a fire that had to burn for 2 weeks from one of these battery suppress, or one of these, I apologize, I wasn't ready, I hate this. From one of these battery storage locations in Chandler, it had to burn for 2 because they were not able to get in. And they actually had to have businesses that were around there evacuated. What if that happens here? What's the plan? Because I know there is a fire suppressant system, but they had one as well. And again, that fire did burn for 2 weeks. They had to let it burn. So what happens? And then how does that affect us? Because there are several mobile home communities around there. And it said that the fire was very intense and it created a lot of air pollution. So I think that was the last thing I had on there. I apologize. So that was it.
Okay, I'm sure that somebody will respond to that knows. Oh, we'll make sure they do. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Noah Hiscox.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thank you for your service. I live at 229 West Central, number 309, and I'm a local farmer, high school graduate in Coolidge, and I've been farming here for going on 45 years. I know I don't look. I have something to ask of you tonight, but I used to teach math. I taught math for 4 years, and I was just curious about the statement, $10 million in tax revenue. If that generated $50,000 a year, that'd take 200 years to generate $10 million. That's a pretty big number. So I'm not saying you're not right, but it's hard for me to understand that. So I'm here tonight to ask you to deny the request for the conditional use permit for resolution number 24-09. For many reasons, I'd like to give you the reasons. First of all, just reading it, it's a resolution of the City Council for the City of Coolidge granting a conditional use permit for a battery energy storage system as a, and then it says, quote, public utility buildings, structures, and equipment. So it's a battery storage system, but we're going to call it something else. We're going to call it public utility structures and equipment. Then it goes on to say, use in agricultural zoning. I'm been a farmer for a long time. I would think battery energy storage would be industrial use. I don't think it has anything to do with agriculture. So that alone is troubling. We'll move on. I have a question for you. If we have a code for standalone battery storage facilities, the only code I'm aware of is Section 906, Solar Facility Overlay. Section D, Permitted Accessory Uses. Number 3, Battery Storage. Now, that's dealing with the batteries that are associated with solar. This is not associated with solar directly. Indirectly, probably. But if that's not the code, our city code, Section 906 for battery storage, then we don't have a code. And if we don't have a code, then there's no guidelines for any safety systems set up for this. You're being asked to approve a special use permit, and there's no code to set up any guidelines for a facility that can and has caught on fire. They produce toxic fumes. They produce thousands of gallons of toxic water trying to put them out. They burn for weeks, and they can't be put out unless they're buried. I'm a farmer. If we put a diesel tank up, we have to build a concrete structure big enough if that thing leaks to hold that diesel. Diesel's not toxic. It's not near as dangerous as one of these that catch on fire. But that's what we're required to do. But there's no code that requires these facilities to be put in a concrete bunker and enclosed. Are these battery storage units required to be contained in concrete? No. The firefighters that are asked to put them out, they risk their lives attempting to bury them. Is there any guidelines that require them to have gas masks for these people? No. How about a big mountain of sand right there nearby and a front end loader, if they do catch on fire, to have that available, sprinkle plenty of water to sprinkle on them, and somebody safety mask, etc., for the driver, so he can not get too hot and cool these things down and bury them. There's nothing, there's no code written for them. We don't have it yet. So these safety measures, they need to be in place, and we don't have a code to deal with them yet. So that's why I think we should deny this for now until we set up proper safety measures and a code to address it. And I think that we had some talks with staff, and I think we all are on the same page, and they would agree that that's what's needed and are willing to help us work with that. So there shouldn't be any rush. Should we charge ahead and grant a conditional use permit so AES can collect an incredible number of tax credits? I'm not sure, 30 to 70%. It's a bunch. I'm all for property rights. The seller wants to sell and the buyer wants to buy. But what about the property rights of all the people that are downwind or downstream of this? They count too. Their property rights count too. I want to understand what the big rush is, and I don't think you should be asked to approve something that's clearly potentially dangerous, and the benefits are pretty slight, and pretty much it's just to a couple of people. It's not to all of us. So I listed some pros and cons, so I'm going to understand. Number one, pro, honor property rights to the buyer and seller. I'm all about property rights. I want to do what I want to do on my farm, on my land. Con, number one, honor the property rights of all the other people that are adjacent or downwind. Number two, pro, help prevent brownouts by storing up extra electricity produced on sunny. Sorry, I couldn't miss that dig, Number two, increase the production of affordable, proven power generating facilities like hydro, nuclear, thermal, natural gas, and yes, coal, where millions of acres of farmland is not destroyed by paving over them with solar panels. Three, pro, provide 1 or 2 jobs. Con, provide for thousands of jobs. 4, produce some personal property taxes on the public utility buildings and the land itself and the equipment. But remember, there is no personal property taxes levied on batteries by state law 42-13056. Generate personal property taxes and sales taxes exponentially more by developing proven, affordable power generating facilities, natural gas, hydro, thermal, and yes, coal. All those create lots and lots of jobs. So I'll leave it there. Thank you for listening to me.
Next speaker is Deborah Neely.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I'm Debbie Neely. I live at 280 North Christensen Road in Coolidge, Arizona. And you're absolutely right. You've seen me before. I'm here asking that you deny this appeal application. When this came out to the general public, we were told that the overlay does not apply to this property because this is a standalone battery storage facility. It's not related to solar. The solar overlay does not apply. It's a standalone battery facility. And Noah, you stole my thunder. Well, that may be so, but Coolidge currently has no specific zoning code that I'm aware of that addresses standalone battery energy storage systems. We don't have that either. And instead of staff, perhaps when they were approached by AES or maybe other like applicants to create or design a specific zoning code for standalone battery facilities, which if they had probably done that, I suspect they would have had received public opposition, giving the prior overlay. But instead of doing that, staff said the overlay doesn't apply. We'll put this application under section 501C11, public utility buildings, structures, and equipment. At the planning and zoning meeting, and this is a quote, this is verbatim, we were told, this is what city represented, we were told this project was not connected to solar, so that's why city did not look accessory use to the solar, or it would have been in the overlay. So since it was a separate entity, the city said, okay, because SRP's use of this thing and how they were utilizing it is why it fell into public use. Well, AES obviously contracts with SRP to provide services to SRP, but AES is a privately held corporation, and it is not a public utility. So making AES's application and city's acceptance of same under section 501C11 is improper. There's just a couple more things I want to share with you. I had a whole laundry list, but like I said, Noah kind of stole my thunder a little bit. There's two things that have pounced out in the last couple of weeks since this has come into public knowledge. I hear this: AES has met all the requirements of the code. We cannot deny. Just because someone has met all the requirements of a code does not mean you need to approve it. My gosh, I may be eligible and met all the requirements for a job. That does not mean that I'm going to be the hired candidate. And I heard this back in the overlay, and I'm hearing this today. If Coolidge doesn't allow these companies to come in, the city could be sued for exercising improper selective growth. Like I said, I heard this back in the overlay 2 years ago. You know, Coolidge opened its doors. We have approved over 8,000 acres within our city limits for solar renewable energy development. While reproach might be had with the way the city or staff has utilized the use of its code for applications, I'd be hard-pressed to believe that Coolidge could be faulted for selective use 8,000 acres later. I had asked Gilbert also to show the map of the overlay, but you all have it. We all know what it looks like. The reason that I'm also requesting this be denied, if you look at that overlay map, everything that's in yellow is the overlay. Everything that's in blue is surrounding city limits. You allow this to go through and be approved, you are opening up everything that is adjacent to those yellow overlay areas that is in blue to have this type of development come through. And everybody go, well, it's not in the overlay. Do you have any questions?
Oh, I don't believe so. Thank you.
Mayor, our next speaker is Brenda Hiscox.
Brenda Hiscox, P.O. Box 309, Coolidge, Arizona. Mayor, esteemed council members, thank you for giving us this opportunity to be heard. I'll make mine brief as I can. Everything I've learned about lithium battery storage, I learned from Coolidge-born and educated Dr. Josh White, Doctor of Climatology, and Perry Moser, specialty firefighter, Mesa Airfield. According to Dr. White, these batteries do not like heat. Actually, he actually said they shouldn't even be built in Arizona in the desert, but that's different. These facilities rely on cooling systems to keep fires from starting. What happens if the cooling system loses power during monsoon season, or happens in extreme temperatures during the monsoon season if the cooling systems can't maintain the necessary environmental parameters for lithium batteries? In May of 2022, as we've already heard, AES This same contractor, seeking to build the site here, encountered an unknown cause of smoldering battery fire at one of their Mesa sites. The smoldering began on April 18th. Hazardous gas leaks prompted evacuations of nearby homes. It took 13 days from start to finish until the fire was declared out. I'm not certain, but I don't think the cause has ever actually been determined. Can you imagine being told to evacuate your livestock and home for 13 days? What if you had to relocate and someone in your home was on serious medical equipment? What would you do? None of these things had been planned for. Perry Moser serves at the Mesa Airport as a specialty hazmat firefighter. He owns land on the Eloy-Coolidge border. His area of expertise is on exactly these matters. I asked him if I could use his information tonight, and he gladly said I could. Mr. Moser listed key points previously before the board. They are such. Do we have fire hydrants in place for these sites? Water is used only to cool the area for the firefighters because water actually reacts with the lithium, making more fires erupt. Do we have heavy equipment on standby in close proximity to these sites? Only heavy equipment front-end loaders can begin the sand-burying process to stop the fires. Do we have stockpiles of sand near these sites, as Mr. Hiscox pointed out? Do we have the training or manpower dedicated for round-the-clock firefighting? This particular type of firefighting requires some extremely intense training that Mr. Moser has to have to work at the Mesa Airport because of the volatile substances they deal with. He said these are the same things. Our firefighters are not trained for this. Do we have the training and manpower? We've been there. If Eloy is called to assist us, they actually spoke. We had 4 city council members Board of Supervisors meeting regarding this issue. If Eloy is called to assist us, does that reduce their capacity to assist their city in the event of a simultaneous fire emergency? Are they going to be spread too thin? Will we need to call in more outside help? If so, who will pay for that? Have any environmental studies been done to assess the toxins in the groundwater after millions of pumped onto one of these fires should it burn for weeks? Do we have millions of gallons of water available to dedicate to lithium facilities? Do we have in place air quality testing to constantly monitor air quality during such a fire/evacuation? He said that needs to be constant. Does our city/county have code in place for handling this new industry? This is very important. I really want you to pay attention to this. This got the attention of the Board of Supervisors. It's very important. After his presentation, Mr. Moser asked if any of the supervisors had any questions. Supervisor Meninga asked Mr. Moser, I'm quoting to the best of my memory. We could go to the tape to see how accurate I am. So what you're suggesting in the event of a fire, in the event of one of these fires, is possible sickness, even death from the smoke? That could bankrupt the county. Is that what you're saying? And he said, that is what I'm saying, sir. Lastly, Century 21 Real Estate has now coined the term incurable defect in regard to solar, wind, and alternative battery storage or green energy storage. An incurable defect is a problem a homeowner, landowner, city, or county cannot easily rectify. They estimate, Century 21 estimates, this will reduce home and property values by an estimated 7 to 10%, thereby reducing property tax clear down to the school districts. I once asked a planning member in Coolidge how the narrow roads were approved in Carter Ranch and Heartland. The answer was, we approve the minimums. Minimums. How does that benefit the people who live there? It benefits the developer and tax revenue, but not the people who live there. How do these battery facilities benefit Coolidge? As Debbie said, just because you meet the minimum, it doesn't mean it's great. These battery facilities don't generate tax. And the power is going to other cities in Pinal, but not Coolidge, and they're going to Maricopa. They don't benefit us. They are an incurable defect. We need to put a hard pause on this new battery storage thing that's coming to our attention in our area. And I also believe in personal property rights, and I've looked at the map, and this gentleman is in a hard spot if he wants to do anything other than solar. But looking at that map and listening to all of these people that tell us this is a very dangerous thing that we're trepidating into our lives, it just seems to make sense to me. My friend, sell your 50 acres to solar and join the solar. I mean, it's outside the overlay at this point, but I'd approve that. I would be okay with that. I'm not okay with the batteries. And as a side note, I just really find it confusing. Interesting. How come we worked one-on-one very nicely, very politely with the city of Coolidge and the citizens to develop what we call the solar overlay? It was amicable, it was a relationship, and it was two-way. But every time these solar companies or these battery companies or AES or whoever comes into our world, they always present with an attorney. To me, that sounds aggressive. To me, it doesn't feel like a relationship. It kind of feels like an or else. I don't really like that. I don't like the way that feels. I don't feel like we're getting any benefit. I just feel like we're being ramrodded. And so my opinion is please deny. We need to take a better look at this, and we need to get code in place and training in place and mitigation in place. We're not ready. Thank you.
Mayor, our next speaker is Julie Frazier.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Julie Frazier. I live at 420 South Davis Circle. I think they've pretty much touched on all of my concerns. I've been raised here in Coolidge and have moved out nearby 11 Mile Corner, so that's why I'm here tonight, because I strongly oppose this and hope you would consider everybody's concerns. It just seems to be spreading all over Pinal County, and I'm hoping that we can put a stop to this until there are the proper safety measures in place, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Our next speaker, I'm not sure if both are going to come up, but Brenda McBath. And is it Mike Vigil?
Know most of you, but I'm Brenda McBath, Fee Hill. Better? Okay. I want to know about the safety data sheets. I live on Early Road, 3956 East Early Road. I have battery storage unit on the east and on the west of me. And now they want to put one on the south. And I haven't seen any of the safety data, which is environmental, how they're built, what they're going to do when they break, if they leak. We haven't received anything from these companies, and that is a great concern to your property owners, the people that live there. I have a well, I have groundwater. So I'm requesting that from you, if you guys have that. If not, would you please get it from the company so that as landowners, we may be more educated for the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is George Arredondo.
George Arredondo, 1601 West Wilson Avenue, Coolidge. I agree with everything that's been said so far. I'm not going to talk the safety factors and environmental hazards and things of that nature, but I'm going to look at, it must be in a good position for SRP to be in that they have to store electricity. I know BIA would be interested in buying that excess power that you have to store, as well as these other companies. Why isn't that we are not getting those benefits. If we have enough solar that you have to start charging it, battery storage, then obviously there's some intentions to hold the power to when the price is right and then you can release it versus, hey, there's enough power, we can reduce the daily rate for consumers so we have more in our pockets instead of your pockets. So those are things that, the question is, why are we in this position that SRP has to put this power in a battery charge? And why is it not provided to the Western Power Authority other than ED2 vis-a-vis there, so other communities like the BIA can buy cheaper power? The other part of that is before battery and solar, you have multiple turbines. I know you got new power turbines, SRP and APS respectively. So you say we need more power, we're going to install these new turbines. I know you throttle them back when the peak is low and demand is high. So the other question is, are you going to throttle those systems so you can charge these banks and get a bigger price at the peak hour? So those are the other things. Why are we? Is it just solar going to be charging these batteries, or is it these gas turbines that we have there? So there's some disconnect here where the power is coming from and where it's being utilized and how that's impacted consumers. So I'd appreciate some feedback on that because I think we're all tired of paying high electrical prices as well, but sound like you guys want to control when and where we get it and what price. So again, on the code, I defer to the legal and the council that there's a lot of ambiguities. If you interpret this way, it'll work, but maybe we need to step back and redefine the code or clear it up, should I say, to address these issues. So we all know as the county, the council and the community, as well as the prospective investors, of what we expect if we proceed in something like this. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, that's all the speakers I had.
You ran out, huh? Is there anybody else? Well, you can respond now, or you can respond if you want. It's up to you. Go ahead.
All right, Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you very much. Certainly appreciate the discussion here tonight and want to make sure everybody's heard and that we're addressing all the concerns. I've got just a few points to make in response to some of what we heard right now. One, there was a lot of discussion about safety, and that's understandable. It's obviously very important to people to make sure that they know they're safe. And I heard multiple speakers note that there are no guidelines, that there is nothing in the zoning ordinance to say how this is going to be safe. But that's not quite right. There are regulations for safety of how we make sure that this battery energy storage is safe. And there are experts who have looked at this for a long time. The National Fire Protection Association put out a regulation 5 years ago. I took you through it a minute ago, and I won't belabor it here, but that's the regulation that the fire chief here specifically asked be put as a condition to our CUP. So instead of asking you as the city council to become absolute experts on fire safety for battery energy storage, let's look to the people who've been doing this and who understand it, and let's adopt what they do. I think that's a great approach, and that is how we can make sure this stays safe. And I just want to note that that fire regulation from National Fire Protection Association, it has specific items in it about spacing and about how far containers are from each other and how far need to be set back from the property line. But it also cross-references other regulations. There's a group called the Underwriters Laboratory, kind of an odd name, but they have what they call Regulation UL 9540. That's required as part of this National Fire Protection Association regulation. What this underwriters group does is they do testing and certifications that insurers and financiers look at. So they go to the specific components as they're being built, as they're being brought in, later on in this process, maybe closer to the building permit process, and they say, okay, does this meet the test? Does this meet the certification? That is also part of what we'll have to abide by, and it's part of what AES typically. There were a couple of references to previous incidences, in particular one in Chandler. That facility was built before this Regulation 855 came around from the National Fire Protection Association. It was, and I think someone even referred to it, it was an enclosed building. That is not how we are structuring this battery energy storage. The enclosed building runs greater risk of things catching each other. We are going to be spaced out to make, obviously we want to prevent any instances, and there are levels of redundancy, there's remote censoring, it can shut off right away if there are any detected differences in voltage or temperature. There's automatic fire suppression that comes on within an enclosed case. But even if it gets past all those layers of redundancy, these steel cases are they're enclosed and they're separated so they won't impact each other the way maybe they would have a few years ago. We're going to comply with the best and most up-to-date requirements, and that's what we're going to continue to work with the fire department on. It is very standard practice for AES to do on-site training with fire personnel. So if they do have to come to the site, it won't be the first time they've been there. They'll know where to go and what to do. That is far more regulated than fire in most other industries. There were also a few comments about what's the benefit to Coolidge. Again, I don't want to belabor things I already said, but the first point is we need a reliable grid. Power demand across this state is going up. We are trying to attract new industry, in particular the high-tech and manufacturing energy industries. They take a lot of power. They also can't afford to lose production at peak hour if we can't meet demand. So this particular battery storage, it has a specific purpose. It is to meet that peak demand when it is at its highest and the grid is most in need of that additional power coming online. This is situated in a position where it goes in that Pinal Central substation, which has lots coming in and out of it. And I believe you heard Ms. Brady say earlier that SRP is actually working with ED2 on the potential for selling them power to provide to the city of Coolidge. And if you have any other questions on that, I think she'd be better to answer than I would. The last thing is there were several references to the zoning ordinance in particular, the ag zoning district and the solar overlay. Again, I'm not going to belabor some of the things in my presentation, but this use is a public utility structure. They're structures, they go in the ground. The power comes on and off of the public utility grid. There were references to needing to fix the code and do new things with the code. And the city may do that in the future, but we're applying under the code that exists today. And the code that exists today, it's got a list in the ag zoning district of uses that are permitted by right and uses that are permitted with the CUP. This is one permitted with the CUP. And there is an additional layer of analysis. And it doesn't mean that every single piece of property in the ag zoning district throughout Coolidge is going to have battery storage on it, because you get to look at each piece of property on its own and say, there's 5 findings in the code. Does this property meet the 5 findings? Here, we do, because of the remoteness of the property and because of the proximity to that transmission infrastructure. Another property may not. And no other property is at issue today. It's just our property that we have applied for under the existing code. Hopefully that helped clarify a few items. I'd be happy to take any questions from the council. Thank you.
Mayor Thompson, I have a few questions for Mr. Yancey.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
Mr. Yancey, who foots the bill if this catches on fire? The citizens of Coolidge? The $10 million isn't going to do much for us if it catches on fire. We have limited resources. We just went to a full-time fire department.
Councilmember Bagnall, I mean, this is on on private property. So it is the private property owner there. And yes, the fire department would be the responding agency. Again, that's why we work with the fire department. That's why we follow the regulations that the fire department asks us to follow in this process.
But it still could catch fire, correct?
Councilmember Bagnall, yes, a battery could catch fire, a home could catch fire, a business could catch fire. And the fire department prepares for all these things.
Right, but if a home catches fire, it's not as toxic as batteries, is that correct?
Councilmember Bagnall, I am certainly not a chemical expert, but there are certainly chemical components within homes. There's batteries that exist within homes. There's vinyl flooring. There's various items. In addition, most homes are not sealed in the way that these battery containers are sealed. There is a lot of thought and effort that goes into the safety for these batteries. There's a lot of thought and effort that goes into the regulations that govern these batteries. And again, that is why we work with the fire chief, and we want to make sure that we are meeting the standards that the fire department wants us to meet.
Okay, let's go in a different direction then. When did AES first make application with the city of Coolidge for this?
Councilmember Bagnall, excuse me, I do not know the exact date of the application. I believe late last year.
Okay, because there is a memorandum of option between the property owner and New Sustainable, which is a LLC controlled by AES, that was done in September of 2023. So I don't imagine they would have entered into that option to purchase that property if they didn't already know what they were going to do. So there was plenty of time to come in, amend the city code, and that would then allow for standalone battery storage. Why didn't they do that?
Councilmember Bagnall, first of all, this is a land use case. It's not about the property ownership or the options, and the code allows it today under the public utility building, structure, or equipment use, which is specifically listed in the Ag zoning district as allowed with the CUP.
That's very vague, the public utility building, and I think it's a bit of a stretch when you go ahead and you say that we can stretch this to include a private energy developer as a public utility or an agent of the public utility.
Councilmember Bagnall, again, the city's purview in land use regulation is not about the owner of the, it is about the use of the land. And that's what we're looking at here is the use of the battery storage that connects to the public utility grid.
And we as a city, if we don't feel that we want this in our city, we also have that right to turn it down, even though you've met all those criteria. Is that correct?
Councilmember Bagnall, there are 5 findings for the conditional use permit. We meet those 5 findings. If you want to look at other criteria, that's not in the zoning ordinance.
Okay. Eastline Solar, which abuts this, who's the developer of that?
Councilmember Bagnall, I did not work on that one. I do understand it was AES, but that property is not at issue in this
Right.
application today.
Right,
This
but they
application-
did develop Eastline Solar, correct?
As they have developed many other generation and storage projects across Arizona and the country.
Okay, so they developed that, and that's just kind of, and I know that they still don't own the land, but I believe they are still operating the solar facilities on the land. Is that correct?
Councilmember Bagnall, I frankly don't know the answer to that question. I am working on this particular application here, which is about the parcel that we showed that is currently vacant.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we're just not going to get anywhere with this line of question then, because you either don't want to answer a yes or no question, or you want to dance around it. So thank you, sir.
Well,
Anybody else?
I have two questions. There's been a lot of questions about safety, and we citizen ask about groundwater. Can anybody answer how these things are made and how we ensure that groundwater is not affected? And can we please have our fire chief discuss any trainings they've had and how do they feel about battery storage facilities?
Good evening, Mayor Thompson, council. As you well know, we do have quite a large amount of renewable energy in Coolidge. If this battery storage facility gets passed, it will not be our first one. We do already have currently battery energy storage systems within Coolidge. I don't believe any of them are operational yet or fully operational. They're in the testing and conditioning phase of their operations. But we also have been provided training through other companies that have had the battery energy storage systems. So we've already received training on these battery energy storage systems. We're well aware of what to basically touch, what not to touch, what to do, what not to do. Even though the Coolidge Fire Department is small, we're very good at what we do. Now, these large battery energy storage systems, yes, are a pretty large hazard as far as my industry goes. That's why the NFPA has adopted the 855 standard, and which many people have mentioned here tonight. That is the standard that we hold these projects at. If they don't meet the NFPA 855s, then my department does not okay the project, or we work with them in order to get into compliance. So yes, but to answer your question, we have had training. We know what to do with these. As far as your comment on the groundwater, we rely on ADEQ we work very closely with all our state agencies. We've had battery fires in the past with other industries. We worked very closely with ADEQ on the remediation of that contaminated soil, the disposal of the contaminated soil to state standards.
Can you describe how you put fires out for have you had any battery fires and how do you
Yes.
guys deal with them?
Okay, so when you're dealing with lithium-ion battery fires, you're dealing with a different type of fire than the traditional methods like a house fire or a car fire. These burn very quickly. They're self-sustaining, and they usually burn out. There's usually no putting them out. There is some technology out there that's coming into our industry that is meant to deal with some of these fires, but it's slow coming. One of the main ways to deal with these is to seal off the area and then let them burn out, or you can bury them in sand or submerge them in large amounts of water. Obviously, with structures of these sizes, now when we talk about that, we're talking about like a car battery, a smaller battery. With structures of these size, obviously we can't go pick it up and submerge it in water. It's way too large. So basically the way we would deal with it is they would have to we'd have to rely on their safety, their built-in safety systems, which will be inspected and permitted through the State Fire Marshal's office. And we would have to just basically stand by and wait for it to burn out or wait for their safety measures to control or isolate the fire.
Thank you.
Any questions down here? No? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
That it? Sure. What come on, please come up here to the podium and, so we can all hear.
Okay. I'd just like to know what the radius of evacuation of a fire. Okay. I would like to know the radius of evacuation in case of a fire. They mentioned the 2 mobile parks, but not Tierra Grande, not all the farmers. It's- Yes.
Yeah. Well, Chief, do you have any idea, or it's not, is it up to you, or scene commander, or who would it be up to?
So what we're talking about is when we're talking about evacuation radiuses based on the hazard, you're talking about how large is the fire? Is it one battery? Is it the actual entire battery structure? Or is it in the entire 59 acres that we're talking about? So it's all based off of the size of the fire. Initially, what we're going to do is we're going to seal off the immediate area, and then we'll have to evacuate if or when the scene grows. You can get up to anywhere between a half a mile and a mile radius distance.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
You bet.
All right, there's nothing further. See nobody approach, we're gonna move out of the public hearing. What? Who? You're out of order, Mr. Arredondo, and you know better. Come on up here.
My apologies, Mayor. I asked a couple of questions at SRP. Is SRP going to be generating power from their turbines to keep these batteries charged? Why are they putting, they have so much excess from solar that they're not utilizing the to share it amongst the communities?
Let me ask him, George. Is there anybody that wants to take a stab at that? Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Arredondo.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Thompson and council members. My name is Bill McClellan. I'm the manager of resource development from SRP.
Thank you, Phil.
And first of all, I'll just mention that SRP is a not-for-profit utility. So we're not in the business of building resources to then go sell on the market for profit. We build resources to meet our customer needs. And when we evaluate the different resources that we put on our system, we're looking at number one, to make sure the system is reliable, and number two, to make it as affordable as possible for our customers. In the cases of a battery storage system, these are resources that do a great job at meeting peak. So that's at times when customer demand is highest, and maybe not all of your other resources are available, such as in the evening, the sun has gone down and solar is not producing. So you are able, if you have excess solar during the day, you can charge that battery during that time when the demand is lower, and then discharge those batteries in the evening when you need it most to make sure that you're able to meet reliability. As far as whether or not we're going to utilize the natural gas turbines like the ones that we are putting in at our Coolidge expansion, that would be an option, although it is probably more cost-effective to utilize excess solar to charge those batteries. But you could use traditional resources like natural gas or some of the other resources that were mentioned here today to charge those batteries, just depending on what's available and what's most cost-effective for SRP customers.
Okay, thank you. I can't see Mr. Arredondo, but did that answer your question? Okay. All right, anybody else have any questions? Okay, come on up.
Thank you, everybody. My name's Robert Lincoln. I live at 242 North Iron Horse Drive in Coolidge. I've listened to both the presenters and the other residents of the Coolidge area that are in disagreement with this proposal. For several reasons, I agree with them. I would urge you to not vote for this, as it is not power generation. if SRP and the applicants wish to make the grid more reliable, why haven't they put more renewable energies as far as the natural gas? And why are they decommissioning power plants in solar that only work when the sun is shining? There are many other ways to make the power grid more reliable. And we never had this issue with power grid reliability until solar started becoming a major thing in the market. Never was an issue. There was never a talk of rolling blackouts or brownouts or any of this stuff, no matter how many residents were around. This also does not benefit the residents of Coolidge at one bit. And it doesn't have anything that benefits outside of the risks that everybody here has spoke about tonight. Also, from my understanding, the aquifers underneath the ground run to the north. If this is south of town, if this does happen to catch on fire at some point in the future, and thousands of gallons of water and other chemicals are used to put this fire out, they can potentially get in the aquifer to where all the city's well pumping stations are. That is something that would put the residents of Coolidge at significant risk in the future. Along with that, what is the replacement and the life cycle of these batteries? Are there any technologies to keep them out of landfills? Just like the wind turbines in other parts of the country, they can't recycle those. They just get buried. What's the plan? How long are these going to last before they have to get replaced and just thrown away? The jobs. Most of these jobs that come in for solar and these facilities are companies that are housed outside of the state of Arizona. I know in my line of work, I go to these job sites. None of these companies are from Arizona. They're all coming in from out of town. They bring out of town workers that live in mobile home parks, and as soon as they leave. That provides no benefit, none. And then last point is I really feel like if the applicant expected this to get approved, they would have been much better informed about the residents in the area, the city of Coolidge, and all of the other things that have been put in, all the other solar projects, all the other concerns of the residents. It seems like they're very misinformed about a lot of this stuff. And with that, I again urge you to not approve this resolution that they are putting forth.
Thank you. Okay, I'll ask one more time. Is there anybody else? All right, seeing none this time, I'm going to make a run for it. Need to move out of the public hearing. I need a motion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're out of the public hearing. Is there anybody here that wants any items pulled off the consent agenda for individual consideration?
Mayor, I'd like to pull number 8. You could vote on it as consent agenda, but I will abstain from voting on number 8.
Okay.
Number 7, don't you?
Number 8, Garrett Motors purchase.
He's not going to vote on that.
No.
Do you want 7?
Isn't 7 the one you're talking about, Steve?
No, I'm not going to vote on the purchase of the Tahoes, number 8.
Yes.
Mine's number.
I think they're different numbers from the
Why is mine
website.
number 7?
Yours is different.
Oh, that
The
usually happens to
website
me.
and then the,
Yeah.
what we
Yours is
received have different
I got
numbers.
number 8. Well, it's number 8.
It's on number 8.
Well, let me read.
Yeah, if you can go down the line and we'll see. Which
Number, my number 8 is consider approval of purchasing 2 new 2025 Chevrolet Tahoes from for the police department from Garrett Motors in the amount not to exceed $94,000 per vehicle, utilizing capital sales tax funds and waiving the sale bid requirements in the best interest of the city. Norma, maybe you or Sienna can solve this mystery. That's the motion, whether it be 7 or 8. Or, I mean, that's the one that Councilmember Hudson is not going to vote on.
Yeah, number 8 is the one we're showing for Garrett, the purchase of the 2 Tahoes for Garrett Motors.
That's not what's on Councilmember Bagnall's or I think.
I think the website showing something different, and then the physical copy has different.
The website has it as number 7.
So I guess our attorney can tell us what we need to do.
Not sure why.
How many agenda, other consent agendas?
It's the same number, so we got
And-
10 on here and 10 on here, so I don't know.
Yeah,
7 and 8 are
Switched.
from the website
to the,
on what was printed out.
Okay, it seems like they're both on under consent. It just seems like that for some reason they got switched. You know, it was interesting because Councilmember Bagno did call me and ask me what amendment was made. And I said none because we didn't change anything, but I wonder if something did, you know, like a freak accident. But you should have Resolution 2406 for the city vehicle designation. You should have the MOU with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office and the City of Coolidge Police Department. You should have an addendum with Motorola. You should have Resolution 2407 for Tohono O'odham funding in the amount of $22,000. And then we have Garrett Motors to the purchase of 2 Chevy Tahoes. And then Resolution number 2408, again, another application to Tohono O'odham for $89,450 to purchase a spray injection patcher for the Public Works Department, and then the claims. So if they're out of order on the website, I apologize. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it just looks like the two got flip-flopped.
So maybe that's why when you called me, I said, well, nothing changed. But maybe when we uploaded the agenda, I couldn't tell you.
Okay,
So
well,
I
I'm gonna go
apologize
off
for that.
Audrey's agenda then.
Yeah,
You
I'll
can
go on the
share.
paper.
And I
Yeah.
have the extras here too.
Well, that's okay, we're good.
Our apologies. Sometimes our programming, you know, we rely too much on them. I'm not trying to blame the program. I love it and it works great. But, yeah, so it probably was just a freak accident.
so we're not pulling the item. It's just that Steve's not going to vote on 8.
Okay. Well, we will have to pull it.
Number 8.
Approve consent agenda 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10. And then I'll vote on that, then you guys can vote.
All right.
Deal.
Well, I'm going to read them then. Item 4, resolution number 24-06. A resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, delegating the city manager or his designee the authority to exercise the city vehicle designation exemption pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes 38503.03. Item 5, consider approval of entering into a memorandum of understanding between the Pinal County Sheriff's Office and the City of Coolidge Police Department for administering the 911 system services billing and payment process, authorizing the chief of police to execute the necessary documents. Item 6, consider approval of entering into an addendum to serve the agreement between the City of Coolidge and Motorola Solutions for continued service of the Motorola dispatch equipment replaced in 2019. On mine, and it's number 7, on others, it's number 8. Resolution number 24-07, a resolution of the mayor and the city council of Coolidge, Arizona, approving submission of an application for Proposition 202 grant funds from the Tohono O'odham Indian Community in the amount of $22,133.44, and approving the acceptance and the use of funds toward the purchase of cameras and upgrades to audio equipment for the city court building. Item 9, resolution number 24-08, a resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, approving submission of an application for Proposition 202 grant funds from the Tohono O'odham Indian Community in the amount of $89,450, and approving the acceptance and use of funds towards the cost of purchasing a spray injection patcher for the Public Works Street Department. And item 10, consider approval of the claims for the month of April 2024.
Mayor, if there's no further discussion, I make a motion we approve consent agenda items 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10 as read.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Norma?
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Councilmember Saavedra?
Yes.
Councilmember Bagno?
Yes.
Councilmember Daniels?
Yes.
Councilmember Murrieta? Vice Mayor Henry?
Yes.
And Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move back to item 8. Consider approval of purchasing 2 new 2025 Chevy Tahoes for the police department from Garrett Motors in the amount not to exceed $94,000 per vehicle, utilizing capital sales tax funds and waiving the sealed bid requirements in the best interest of the city.
Mayor Thompson?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I know going back at budget, we approved originally 6 new vehicles. And they acquired 3 of those, I think, immediately. And now we've got the 2, but I thought after the last meeting, it was pretty much decided that they would go ahead and get all 3 of them. Am I incorrect in that?
I don't know, as Gabe's not here. Rick, I think the chief, didn't you say you only needed 2 right now? Or do you need all 3? Okay. Come on up, chief.
I believe these 2 was approved and funded for the
From the last year's budget, yeah.
The other Tahoe is gonna come in for the 25, 20,
Okay,
24, 25, 26 budget.
okay, chief.
Mayor and Vice Mayor, here's what I know. After last meeting, you guys agreed to unfreeze the half. We had 6, 3 were frozen. The following day, we got back with finance and we had enough money for 2, was in the remaining balance. I can break down the cost. The Tahoes are $53,200 per vehicle. MHQ's, who is our outfitter, is $34,000. The laptop is $3,400, and graphics for the vehicles are $717. And we actually have radios. Each radio in those vehicles are $8,500, which brings it to just under $100,000 per vehicle. It's 91 as we're going to buy them. We have some radios in the back from previous crash vehicles. We were told that there's like 192,000 remaining in that fund that we had for capital, and we just divided that what we could get. So we're going for 2.
I think we approved 3, but if we can
Approved
pay
3.
for 2 right now, do you have the officers for them?
These are going to be for the new guys. We're actually full on paper, as I told you. We're full immediately.
Okay, with that, then I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve item 8 of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we'll move into business of regular items. Item 11. Thank you, Chief, wherever you went. Consider award of the bid with Ellison Mills Construction LLC for construction of a 150-foot steel shade on the north side of the Public Works facility for an amount not to exceed $132,863, and entering into contract with Ellison Mills Construction LLC for the steel shade structure and authorizing the mayor to sign the necessary documents. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Provided the information for you. We did take this out for bid. We received 3 bids on it. Ellison Mills was not the lowest bid. The reason they were not the lowest bid is because the structure who was lowest bid did not meet our requirements. So we're looking for a cantilever structure. That way we don't have any beams or posts on the outside of the structure. That way you can drive through it. You won't hit anything. The structure that was the low bid was an A-frame style bid, and that's why it was a lot cheaper. So this was the next lowest bid. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Mayor, just one quick question. Ben, I read the packet and I seen this was the middle option as far as pricing goes, and I know one of the, I guess, and I actually really like the review sheets that you provided. I think that was really cool. But what, can you just describe why I think it was the lower, or the, I guess, cheapest option wasn't necessarily, I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but you said something in there about depth and I don't know, something.
Okay, so the lowest option I want to say is around $88,000. This is an A-frame style shade. And so it's exactly what it sounds like. It looks like an A-frame, and it has these pillars every 10 feet, and it's an A-frame. Every 10 feet you have this A-frame, and it runs across, and it didn't have the 2 different heights. We're wanting the 2 different heights on it for a 30 by 30 section, so one day we can put out a large lift that would actually be able to handle a fire truck. Those lifts are very expensive, so that's down the line when we've got a little bit extra money and we can do something like that. But we're looking for this higher section so we can actually lift the truck. This A-frame style was this single height all the way across it, and it also had those pillars that are out at the end of the awning. The other two were actually cantilever style shades. So there's a pillar that's in the back up against the wall, and it has an arm that sticks out to 30 feet, and that's it. There's nothing in front for a support. So that style will support the weight of the roof, and you can actually drive through, and there's no support beams that are in the way. And so that's what we're looking for, so we can have all our equipment and everything, and you can actually drive through it. So when you're making the turn around the building, you won't catch any poles or anything like that. So we're keeping everything out of the way.
Mayor. Mr. Navarro, so when we were going through the budget, I believe that you wanted this and it was put on hold, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so initially, were you looking at going to the south that way? Because I remember something, you talking about the big door to the south, you wanted to put something out there. Am I incorrect?
I could have said the south, it's possible, but no, this is across the north side. Anything on the south is the front of the building, so we're not putting anything on the front of the building. This is all at the back of the building that's in the yard. The reason we had put this on hold initially was because there was, we were down our building maintenance guy, and the youth center needed approximately 5 AC units, and it was gonna cost us roughly $50,000 to replace these units. But when we hired on Sam Juarez, he's actually a very excellent AC man, and he was able to get all those units up and running, and we didn't have to replace them. So instead, it only cost us about $8,000 to get all those units up and running and going. And so
Okay.
that's why we were able to put this back on.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and Allison Mills has done a lot of work for us and does quality work, and they're a great partner with the city of Coolidge. And then they take care or pay for a lot of curb gutters and sidewalks on Coolidge Avenue.
So actually, they did all the work on Coolidge Avenue. They were paid for it. It was part of a HERF exchange program. They were paid for it. They did donate the curb and sidewalk over in front of Imagine Schools, and they did that section on the north side of Vauquay Inn, and that's what they do. We do a lot of work with Ellison, and we're very happy with them.
But they help us out when we need it.
Absolutely. If they actually back us up when when our truck is down for wastewater, they actually back us up. So if we need a truck to come out in the middle of the night, they support us.
Thank you, Ben.
Anything else? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we'll move into item 12. Resolution number, we didn't vote, okay.
Mayor,
Need
if
a
there's
mo-
no further discussion, I move to approve item number 11 as read.
Second.
See, Councilmember Daniels messed me up. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that carries. Now we'll go to 12. Resolution number 24-09. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Coolidge granting a conditional use permit for a battery energy storage system as public utility buildings, structures, and equipment use in the agricultural ag zoning district. Gilbert?
Mayor Thompson, Vice Mayor Henry, council members, this is a resolution that would approve the conditional use permit. So denying this, then it would be disapproved. So I'll answer any questions you may have. We had all the information during the public hearing, so if you need. Yeah, so let me speak better. Yeah, so this is the resolution 24-09 that would, if you approve this, then it would approve the conditional use. If you deny it, of course, then it does not. So if you have any other questions, we provided all the information to you at the public hearing portion of it. So if you have any questions, we can answer that.
Mayor, I just have, you want to go?
No, I just wanted to wait to this portion. I had received, I'm sure, I don't know if I'm the only one that got some email, but I did receive one that I would like to read. It stated that a battery energy storage system is a great way to augment the grid, but it should be done with responsibility. This technology is rapidly evolving, as do the standards that provide oversight for the industry. Our zoning code is no different. BESS is only mentioned once in the zoning code. This is the solar overlay, and it is certainly mentioned, By attempting to define it and as a utility is just overlooking a description and use that already exist and aligns with proposed use. Allowing BES in ag zoning without an overlay may result in the city being overwhelmed with this industrial use. Imagine any and all ag zone property being an acceptable and approved industrial BES site, regardless of the size or proximity to the homes, with the only restricting regulation being adopted setbacks. This willingness to accept a new use and facilitate the process is how the city of Coolidge became inundated with 8,300 acres, more or less, of our land area covered with solar. This use not only includes the BES, but the large substation and transmission lines. What effect would this have on neighboring property owners, neighboring homeowners? BES is a fast-paced, evolving technology. Our zoning code needs to have the opportunity to evolve with it. And I would just like to bring up that I did a little research, Google, and of course, we talked about the battery fire in Chandler, but it also, I think there's one going on in California that's been going on for 3 weeks. So I just wanted to bring that up also.
Okay. Did you have something?
Yeah, just a quick question. A lot of the, I guess, comments and concerns brought up, completely understand them, but if this were to get approved tonight, Gilbert, we would still go through the site plan review process, is that correct?
Yeah, Mayor Thompson, council member, yes, Daniels, they would go through the site plan process. So they would have to come back to P&Z, and that way we'd get the real, I guess, the real definite portions of it that have to be where they go, where they're located, where the wiring goes, all that would have to be part of that.
Okay.
That's correct.
And that would only go to the city planning commission. It wouldn't come to council if you would reverse the decision by the planning commission.
So first off, I want to thank everybody for showing up, because if you don't like the situation we're in, for many years, nobody showed up to any of these meetings unless we're here tonight. People want to have an opinion, and I'm glad you're here, because for 4 or 5 years, nobody came to these meetings. So at least now we know how people feel about these subjects, and they express their opinions. So I thank you for showing up. And tonight, it's been said a number of times, but it is a land use issue. And there are some conditions, and apparently these, the groups on one side have met almost all the conditions, in my opinion. There is one thing that I've looked at, and I read this thing 3 times today, so I'm not too thrilled with them, but because I had to redo all that reading again. But the bottom line for me is, in a lot of ways, is it's 12.5 miles from our fire station to their to Sunscape, and they're a little farther than Sunscape. And it takes 19 minutes to get there. Now when we go into the, one of the, I think it was 5, but I'm not sure, you guys will know more than I will about that, but it was one of the conditions about safety, and, to me, it's protection of the community. Now, I don't know that we're necessarily ready for some of the things that are going to happen. And I don't want to see anybody get hurt because we rush into something. So I didn't have my mind made up until I heard both sides of the argument. And so now I do. But when somebody asks me why, it's 12.5 miles, no matter how much we train our firefighters and how far they still got to go. And that's a lot of time. And so I'm going to, there's a lot of other things I've got written down. There's no point in even mentioning it because they nailed it pretty good. I think we have to work on our code. We have to change something somewhere to make it because it's not really fair to them, but still, that's a long ways to go, and I think it's a public safety issue. So I'm gonna pass the ball on to, did you want?
Yeah, the only thing I have to say is, I was appointed for a 2-year term to fill a two-year term and elected twice. And I always said that I would make my decision, my logical decision, based on how I felt and what I thought. And I don't take it lightly whatsoever. I mean, I've got a wife and 6 grandkids that live in this town, and they go to school here, they live here, and they're gonna live here. And there's some decisions I made that the citizens didn't like. And one of them was going from alley trash to street trash. We were funding solid waste, and it was costing us $300,000 to $500,000 every year. That's your taxpayer money that it was costing us. Since then, we're just about break even. So we have saved $300,000 to $500,000 by me making a decision that a lot of you did not like. But I've always said that I was going to make my decision based on how the citizens felt, and is it financial benefit and beneficial to the citizens of Coolidge and the city of Coolidge, and that's how I'm going to vote.
Before we go, and AES and SRP, especially your attorney did an excellent job, doesn't have anything to do with you. But you've seen, I'm an elected official, those are my bosses right there. They live in Coolidge, that's what they want. Do you have any, down here, anything?
Well, I just want to follow up, again, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight, too. I'm glad to see everybody's concerned about this. It's something that we need to be concerned about. And we need to protect our community. That's the bottom line right there. And if we have something like this come in, and we don't have any guidelines here within the city to deal with these things, then, it's pretty much open game. You can go with the battery, or you can go with the fire regulations and everything else, but we want to probably go a little bit more than that to protect our community and to protect our groundwater. I'm living out there. I'm just about a couple miles away from this site as the crow flies. And there's another one even closer to me that's part of the Pinal Central Solar. And then there's another one that's right over there on the other side of the canal between Tierra Grande and the Pinal County Animal Care and Control. That's another thing we have to look at. We've got batteries there. We've got them all over the place, and they're proposing one down on Tweedy as well. That's out in the county. That's not something we have to deal with. That's something that's coming up, though. So, again, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I think everybody knows how I feel about this BESS and any future solar. I've never been quiet about it, that's for sure. So, and one other thing, when you talk about putting up, shrubs and everything else like that, I said this at the county P&Z the other day, it's putting lipstick on a pig. It's still back there, we know it's back there, and it's gonna be, so you can dress it up all you want to, but it's still a pig. Thank you.
Anything further? I guess I need a motion to act.
Mayor Thompson, I make a motion to deny resolution number 24-09.
Second.
Okay, the motion is second. Norma?
What is a yes, no, and a no vote going to give, Norma?
Say yes.
Yes vote is to deny, a no
Okay,
vote.
I just want to clarify that.
Okay. Okay, Vice Mayor Henry?
Yes.
Councilmember Murrieta?
Yes.
Councilmember Daniels?
No.
Councilmember Bagnell?
Yes.
Councilmember Saavedra?
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
And Mayor Thompson?
Yeah, yes. Okay,
6-1.
report from Mayor and City Council. Start down here with Councilmember Bagnell.
Nothing really to report. Just want to remind everybody tomorrow, Thursday night, spaghetti dinner, American Legion. Always got to remind everybody. So please come down 5 to, I believe, 8 o'clock. And there's no winter visitors, so you can get right in and get right out. Thank you.
No, I've got nothing.
I have nothing to add.
Nothing.
I just wanted to say that Friday and Saturday, Mike and I went out and helped put up flags and crosses out at the cemetery. And then we also attended the memorial service, not memorial, what am I, oh, God. The
Memorial
well, yeah, the service, the mayor spoke. It was, every year they add something new. And this year, they added a few new things, and it was really awesome. So I encourage the citizens of Coolidge to help out with these types of things and attend. I know some of our other staff attended, and it was just really impressive, I thought. So.
Thank you. Rick? I don't have anything either. Again, thank you all for coming. It's good to know that this helps us. You know, we know how you feel. Thank you very much. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, guys.